Perfect. Okay, thank you all. Started. Hi, everyone. My name is Marnie Dow. I in hers, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Student Involvement at UNLV. I want to welcome everyone to our panel discussion today. I'm really excited that it's a celebration of first generation students this week. And when we thought about what we wanted to add to the agenda of programming for this week, I thought about, my work, which is really focused on student organizations and how much student organizations can help enhance the experience of first generation students on campus, provide support for first generation students. So I reached out to the First Generation Club and some other student leaders that I know who are first generation students. And I was hoping that we could kind of just in this conversation really talk about your experience as first generation students and students who are highly involved on campus. While I focus on student organizations, our office focuses on all sorts of involvement opportunities, not just student organizations. I know like Josh and Olivia are here from Csun. Technically, that's not a student organization, but to us, that's involvement. Any sort of experience outside of the classroom that helps enhance your academic experience, that's involvement, and that's what we love to see students add to their collegiate experience. So we'll kind of talk about involvement in a broad sense and try to focus on student organizations overall. So I just want to say for our attendees, feel free to ask any questions that you have, add them to the Q&A. I will try to monitor them as everyone is speaking and make sure that we get to all of those either during our conversation or after. For our presenters, just unmute yourself whenever you're ready to talk. There's not so many of us that we need to kind of worry about like a hand raise or a name in the chat or something. We can just figure it out. And it's going to be a pretty informal conversation. We're just going to kind of talk about everyone's experience and sort of see where the conversation goes. So why don't we just get started? Just for the first one, I'll just kind of go in order on the screen. Can everyone just introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about you as a student. And some of your involvement either in student organizations or other areas on campus. Nikki, do you want to get us started?
Sure, I would love to. So hi everyone, my name is Nicole Cervillon. I also go by Nikki. I am a senior at UNLV. I am majoring in journalism with a focus in public relations. And when it comes to my involvement on campus, I currently have 2 jobs in the Student Involvement and Activities office. So I work for Marnie now, hello. And I also work for Fraternity and Sorority Life, and that also takes me into my involvement in Fraternity and Sorority Life. I am the current chapter president of my sorority, Kappa Delta Chi. We are part of the Multicultural Greek Council here on campus. Which coincidentally, I am also on the e-board for the Multicultural Greek Council. So I do public relations for the e-board of that council. But yeah, so my involvement kind of just looks very heavy into Greek life. And also, I think my involvement has definitely like grown a lot since joining SIA, like the office in general. Like I've met so many different people, like people in CSUN, SLL, CAB. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Nikki. And that is a great thing to point out. I consider your work on, if you're working for a department on campus, that's definitely involvement. That's you getting involved in the business of the university and learning more and enhancing what you're learning in the classroom. So I always think about student employment as a way of being involved on campus too. So thank you for bringing that up. Cricket, you want to go next?
Sure. So my name is Cricket Friend. I'm a senior majoring in finance, and I am also a student employee at the university. I work over the lead library. So if you are checking anything in and out or looking for a book, that's kind of my station. And I love interacting with the students and also the professors and everything, and just kind of help with that process because I know it's really difficult, even as a first generation student, to like know what to look for and how to use those resources. I also am the president of the First Generation Club, so we kind of are so super excited to have like this big week-long event dedicated to all our first generation students, whether they are the members of the organization or just first generation students all over campus.
Awesome. Thanks. Josh, why don't you go next?
Cool. I'm Joshua Padilla. I am in my 4th year of college. I'm studying civil engineering. I am the CSUN undergraduate student body president, and I spent a few years on the UNLV debate team. It's been pretty cool. I basically, what I do is talk to a lot of different RSOs, and I connect with a lot of different students, answer a lot of emails, and I try to bring as many concerns and issues that students have to upper administration and faculty.
Awesome, thanks. Olivia, why don't you go next?
Awesome, definitely. So hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Checky. I am in my third year here at UNLV. I'm a political science major, and I'm in the Brookings Public Policy minor program. So I guess I have two things to talk about. First of all, as far as employment goes, I am a student researcher for Brookings Mountain West and the Lindsay Institute. So that has given me a really good opportunity to just kind of study public policy as it pertains to Las Vegas, Nevada, and then the Greater Mountain West region. So that has definitely changed my life. And then I am also the Senate President for Csun Student Government. So I work pretty closely with Josh. We're both on the executive board, but I'm also the head of the legislative branch. So I oversee our 25 senators across all the different academic colleges, and I plan all of our meetings and I chair them, set the agenda. So it's been really fun. It's a great way to meet a lot of students, and it has definitely just opened up my world in so many ways.
Thanks. Judith, why don't you go next?
Of course. So hello, everyone. My name is Judith. I'm currently a double major in finance and international business with a minor in global entrepreneurship. I would say that most of my current involvement is within the business school. So I currently mentor for the Lead Business School. I also am currently a lead ambassador. I was an international ambassador for the school, and I think there's like so many stuff. And I'm currently treasurer for First Generation. So those are just some of my minor, I guess, titles or just involvements on campus. Excited to be here.
And Ruby, why don't you round us out?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Ruby. I'm with the First Generation Club. I'm the VP of Recruitment. I work on campus at the International Disciplinary Gender and Ethnic Studies Department. That's always fun. As a student, it's very easy to get involved on campus, I'd say. Just get in touch with any of the many organizations we have on campus, and it's an easy pathway to get involved in virtually almost all the clubs that there are on campus.
Thanks, everyone. So I'm so happy. It's so nice to see like such a broad range of involvements. I love talking to students, just kind of have a lot going on. So I want to kind of mention a couple of things before we move on. Many of you are part of our First Generation Club, which is one of our almost 400 student organizations on campus. So I know particularly one of the barriers for first generation students is all the acronyms we use on campus and sort of that nomenclature that sort of sounds like, oh, I'm supposed to know what people are talking about. So I will try really hard if I use an acronym to make sure that I explain it. So even just starting with the idea of RSOs, which we call our registered student organizations. Like I said, we have 400 of them. And a question that we get a lot from all students, not only first generation students, is how do we know who those organizations are? So I'm going to ask a question in just a second. So during that, I'll add it into the chat. But the biggest piece of advice we can give you is to check out the Involvement Center, which is our online portal for all 400 student organizations. Every single student organization has a page with some about information and information about how to reach out to them. That's the best way to find out about student organizations on campus. Some organizations prefer that you email them or reach out to them on Instagram, and it should say that on their page. Like I said, I'll add that link into the chat. But Cricket, because you're the president of First Generation Club, do you want to just kind of take this as an opportunity to kind of shine a light on what 1GC does and how you help enhance the experience of your students and the college and UNLV as a whole? What is your place at UNLV?
Yeah, so we actually use the Involvement Center a lot to like post a lot of our events and things happening. Like we actually have one going on later today where we're just celebrating first generation students in general for our members and just anyone that wants to join. But for our organization, like we strive to help those students who may not have any background for college or anything like any way to kind of get some help as to where to go. Because there's a lot of questions where for first generation students, they think they would not want to ask because they think I guess it'd be a stupid question, but no question is a stupid question because there's obviously someone else that has that question. So like anytime I'm in class, I'm always the one that asks the questions. Everyone's like, well, everyone knew that, but there's obviously going to be someone else in the class that didn't want to ask that question. So if you have a question, definitely ask that. And I think that's what our organization is about. Like we have members come in and ask questions that may have no idea about any of the information. So we try to give them that information. And for our members, it's not only just like, because for UNLV's definition of first generation is anyone whose parents either did not go or finish at a four-year institution. But for our organization, we've actually kind of opened it up a little more just because we know there are people who maybe have their parents did graduate, but say they're a family of lawyers or doctors, but they want to do something like in graphic design. That's kind of the example I always like to use. Obviously, the resources that they're going to need or the resources they would use are going to be different. So we kind of are one of that stepping stone for first generation students and anyone who really needs the extra information for the university. And just tries to help people get not only through college, but be able to get that experience rather than where before I even joined the organization, I was that commuter student. Come to school, do class, go home, do homework, repeat. So being involved on campus is very much something I always strive to get students to do just because you're in college, you really should get that full experience. And, even if it's with First Generation Club or if it's another organization, whether if you're in like the business school, you have DECA, AMA, FinTech, if you have like a love for Star Wars, I think there's a Star Wars club on campus. There's so much a big variety of what you can do on campus. So even if you don't have anything that you find that you really like, just grab, I think it's like 4 or 5 friends, get a group together, and you could start one. Like that's how we got to over 400 organizations now. So might as well get it going to 500.
Cricket's vying for my job. She knows my presentation backward and forward. That's how you started a student organization. I love it. Yep, it only takes 5 people. She's heard me give that spiel once or twice before. So that's really good. Thank you. I love giving 1GC a free plug. I think what you all do on campus is really fantastic. But 1GC is not the only student organization. We have all sorts of student organizations that are focused on your academic discipline or faith-based organizations, sport clubs. We have organizations based on service. We kind of a little bit of anything for everyone. Yes, we have the Society of Lightsaber Duelists who are for people who are into Star Wars. So hopefully there's something for everyone. And if you don't find the organization that's right for you, highly encourage you to start a new organization. That's what I'm here for. Cricket, if you'd like to, we'd love if you put in the chat information on how to reach out to you all. So if you want to put your email address or your social media handle, that's great. I'm going to pose a question to the whole group, but I figure that's a great way to plug 1GC. So we know, I am a nerd and I like evidence-based information, research-based information. And so to me, one of the biggest draws for students to join student organizations is telling them that being a part of a student organization actually helps you be a better student, helps you do better academically, and students who are part of student organizations are more likely to graduate. I think particularly for our first generation students, sometimes for them and for their support and family members, they think all of your time should be focused on your academics. You're there to get a degree. That's what your college experience is for, and anything else is distracting you from that. And research has showed that's actually the opposite, that involvement in student organizations and all sorts of other involvement on campus helps you focus, helps you figure out a lot of the skill sets that you need, time management, working with other people. But that actually helps make you a better student, and students who are involved on campus feel more attached. And because of that attachment, they're more likely to stick it out when it's hard and to graduate. So with that in mind, do any of you want to kind of talk about, and this can be free form, whoever wants to go, any of you want to talk about how you think your collegiate experience is better, particularly your academic experience, for having been involved in your student organizations?
Yeah, I can go. Definitely the biggest factor I think was for me was connecting with other students and kind of networking more and making new friends. That definitely was a driving force because I found other students that were in my situation that were just as passionate about the things that I was passionate about. So it made me kind of want to do better in those passions. And they also kind of pushed me to strive better in other areas that I wasn't as passionate about, but were still important to, my academic success and kind of my career interests and success as well.
I can add on from like the Greek life perspective. There are a majority of the organizations on campus do have a GPA requirement if you're interested in, joining a fraternity or sorority on campus. I can say like for my organization specifically, like we compared to other organizations, we do have a higher GPA requirement of a 2.75. The minimum is usually 2.5. But I think for my personal experience, like because I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself, I strived harder and I worked harder on my GPA to be able to participate in the things that I can participate in now.
I would just like to also pitch in, academics really open doors. So there's a lot of organizations on campus that provide you the opportunity to study abroad, which definitely widens your horizon. It just makes you a more well-rounded individual to the world.
Yeah, I think kind of adding on to Judith, like there are the studying abroad or doing being a part of an organization. That's also like a resume builder if you're looking for something for job wise. Like I know like the degree is always important, but always having those connections with organizations. Like I know I deal a lot with Bonnie, who is one of the career development center for the Lee Business School, and she very much like kind of talks about how if you're involved in an organization or two, or if you're a leader role in those, it's really good to kind of get that connection. And I've always heard like even with fraternities and sororities, having that connection really does help, because it's not only showing like employers or people you talk to in the future that you are a good student, but also you are able to engage in relationships with people around campus or just overall the community itself.
I would just add on to the study abroad. So there's definitely like the international study abroad, but there's also like programs within your college. So I know like Lee Business has like international ambassadors, and they have Nevada Global Business, and there's so many other options, like minors even travel abroad. So the opportunities are just limitless.
Okay. Both Cricket and Judith kind of touched on something that I think it's worth expanding on, which I really like. The idea that involvement in your student organization helps open doors. I really like the way that you put that, Judith, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard students tell me that the reason they got an internship or a job interview has to do with a connection they made in their student organizations, particularly a lot of our academic-based organizations. For example, a hospitality-based organization, maybe not so much now during COVID, but in general, they do a lot of like tours of local hotels and facilities and meeting people who work in the industry, or finding out, getting emails about internship opportunities. Those are all really great ways to kind of use your student organization experience as a way to enhance college and whatever your experiences are. Does anyone want to kind of expand on that, what they've got in terms of networking or opportunities in their student organization?
Yeah, I can kind of take this one. So something that kind of comes to mind is we just had an election, and obviously a lot of people tend to focus on the presidential race or congressional races, but I got pretty involved with one of the campaigns for ballot question 1, which was about the Board of Regents and the Nevada system of higher education. And I wouldn't have gotten involved with it if it weren't for my connections through Brookings Mountain West and the Lindsay Institute with all of my research, just because moving past UNLV and understanding kind of the system that we're all under is kind of confusing, but learning through all of that research really helped me understand kind of what was going on and how we could improve. So from there, I was able to get involved with a campaign, and that actually introduced me to a lot of community leaders. I've definitely met a lot of leaders through UNLV, but that was kind of just a really good step towards meeting people outside of UNLV as well.
So I love that story. That's such a good story, Olivia. And it kind of echoes what I've heard from a lot of students. Is that like, oh, I worked for this department and I found out about this. There's lots of really good ways, but those those individual connections you make in student organizations shouldn't be discounted, because you might be like, oh, they're my advisor, I interacted with them once or twice, but then they might be a good resource for you later on down the road, or to write a reference for you, or to introduce you to someone that happens to work, closely with them. There's all sorts of really interesting things. I think another important thing that you all have kind of alluded to this is that connection piece. Particularly right now, where I can see we're all in our own homes, it looks like. So the virtual world is incredibly isolating. We've heard from a lot of students that, just being at home on their computer is really hard, especially for first year students or newer students who don't have that support network yet. It's very isolating. Does anyone want to talk about, the connection that comes from your student involvement, from your student organizations, either before COVID times or even now, like how that's helping you through this little bit of the isolation we're all feeling?
I can kind of take this one because I feel like because of the pandemic, a lot of people are very unsure about Greek life, because Greek life is such a social environment. They're like, how are you prospering during a pandemic? Like, how is fraternity sorority life going to keep on, pushing the boundaries and keeping up with everything that's going on if you can't be in person for a philanthropy, or if you can't, go to a social with someone. But at least from my experience, I think before and during quarantining and everything, I think Greek life has definitely been very creative. At least I can say from my personal experience, we participated in a virtual recruitment. It was really interesting to see. We really tried our best to be as personal as possible, and I think kind of the upside to promoting the idea of a sisterhood or a brotherhood was definitely more important this time around, because again, how can you promote that if you're not in person? But something that we noticed was we had interests that were coming to our events virtually that maybe attended one before in person, and the only reason why they didn't come back that time was because they were too shy. But because of the fact that we were offering a virtual platform, they were like, you know what, I can be a little bit more confident about this and I can actually go to this. And because of that, we were able to recruit a lot of new members, which is a great thing to see during a pandemic. But I think something that or at least I've tried to really implement among my members, is that we really need to be there for each other. And even if it's just one text a day to each other just to check in with each other, that's still promoting the sense of sisterhood or brotherhood, whatever you want to call it. And even though it can be a little bit exhausting, it's still really worth it. We try and be as creative as possible, as the phrase is becoming so the staple phrase this semester, be creative. We really are trying to be creative. We're planning a virtual Thanksgiving event for all of our internal members, because we always do a Thanksgiving with our family, in person. So I think definitely just trying to be there for each other as much as possible, even if it's one text, that one text is going to mean so much to someone.
Yeah, I think for first generation, I think the whole getting that community was definitely interesting. Like before COVID, we used to have when we had events, we would have food and everything to kind of get people in and then really have that communication. But now, since we're virtual, you can't really have food. So for our organization, we ended up having to figure out how to get people in and to be able to have that conversation. Because I think a lot of people are kind of dealing with that virtual meeting fatigue. They just oh, it's just another meeting or it's just another class. So for our organization, we ended up putting through a series of events, which we actually changed because we had some insight from members that wanted something a little different. So currently we have our events that we hold that are more for first generation information and resources. And then of course we have these fun ones like Ruby actually is one of our hosts for our Among Us games. So we have quite a bit of fun with those, and it definitely gives like a bit of a break from the constant meetings that you're in with classes. So I think that's kind of brought our members back and be able to communicate, because it's not just about like another resource event or another information where it's kind of like we're all just in this and we're all kind of dealing with this. I know for our organization, it was definitely difficult when we first kind of switched over in the spring. We were like, we have no idea how to go virtual. So for this fall, we kicked it off, and I'm very proud of my board for kicking it off the way it did, because it has been a lot. But you know, sometimes for organizations, you just gotta have those fun times of playing a video game and just kind of have that communication of, hey, how was school, or you know, how's life? But then of course just have it mixed in with the video game for sure.
Anyone else want to chime in, or even Csun, how are you all, you know, engaging? Not just, I mean, I know you're doing your regular business virtually, but how are you helping students stay connected to each other, whether they be students who are involved in Csun or students overall?
Yeah, I'll speak about that. So definitely we have our virtual meetings all the time. So it's nice to kind of have to go onto a meeting and see, you know, all your peers and colleagues that are working on, you know, different projects and things like that with you. But some of the things that we've been trying to do kind of internally to make sure that we foster kind of those connections and stuff like that between people is just kind of how Cricket was just talking about. We have our little own Among Us nights, and we have other kind of plans in the future of doing more virtual events, just trying to get students to, you know, be involved, but then connect with each other more, just because when we are face to face, it's a lot easier because we can throw those kind of in-person events and those in-person kind of game nights and stuff like that. But obviously with COVID, we can't. So it's been that transition of, I think everybody's, you know, figuring it out of, you know, what virtual things can we do where we can still talk to each other and we can still communicate with each other, but it's not about, you know, work per se. It's, you know, a more lighthearted environment or event. So.
Nikki, you kind of touched on something I want to mention, but by show, I know Nikki is involved in fraternity story life. By show of hands, is anyone else Greek affiliated? It's just Nikki. Nikki, can you do me a favor? If it's totally fine, I'm going to make you sort of represent the Greek community for just a minute. Is there any, I think, particularly for first generation students, but all incoming students, people have this image of what Greek life is. You know, they watch TV and movies and like, Greek life is this thing, and either it is for me or it isn't. And I know when I speak to students in the Greek community, they're like, that's not what Greek life is like, first of all. Second of all, I think if people came and talked to us, they would really kind of have a better way to understand if this is the right experience for them. It's not for everyone, but it's not what people think it is. So, you know, are there any myths about Greek life that you would debunk, or anything you would want to tell incoming students or newer students, or even students? I mean, you can join a fraternity or sorority in your last year that you know, want to kind of open the door of what Greek life is actually like.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of stereotypes. At least from my own personal experience, you know, unlike many other people that join Greek life, even though first generation, I still have an older sister that went through college herself, and she joined a Greek lettered organization on her campus. So growing up, I did get to see what her experience was like, and I was in like middle school, like going into high school when she joined. And it was also another multicultural Greek council. So even though like we have so many different like councils, the culture generally is the same, but there are different meanings to a lot of the traditions each group of councils do. And again, so I can mostly speak for like the multicultural experience of joining a Greek letter organization versus a Panhellenic, an interfraternity, you know, organization, or the National Panhellenic organization, also known as Divine Nine on our campus. So at least from my personal experience, I think many people think that if you join a multicultural Greek organization, you do have to be of a certain ethnicity, which is not true at all. I joined a Latina founded organization, but nationwide, our membership is very diverse and it is multicultural. So things like, Latina interest or Asian interest or, Arab interest, it doesn't mean a lot in the sense that organizations are only recruiting those kind of people. It's put in the names mostly to encourage those kind of people to join, because in many cases our organizations were created because we didn't have a space on our campuses. And I think now it's definitely different, especially with UNLV being one of the most diverse campuses in the country. It's very different. Per se, like I guess our experience here. But yeah, you don't have to be Latina, you don't have to be Asian to join one of those very specific organizations whatsoever, or even for like our national Panhellenic organizations, which are historically Black fraternities and sororities on our campus. You don't have to be Black to join their organization. And I feel like that's what many people think when coming into it. And at least speaking on my experience within my organization, it's definitely not the typical, fraternity sorority life experience where you see on TV and it's like, we're partying and stuff like that. Like, no, that's really not the case. We're very academically driven, as well as community service driven. My organization specifically was founded to provide community service to a Latino population, because there is a very lack of, support in that area. So, it's very different. And I think when looking into Greek life, you can join anytime in your undergraduate career. It doesn't matter if you're a non-traditional student of like 30 years old. If you're still an undergrad student, you can join a sorority or fraternity. And if for any reason, like we have any graduate students on the call, like you're still able to participate in Greek life, although the options are a little bit smaller. You still have the option to join. Like specifically our National Panhellenic Council, like they have graduate chapters connected to their undergraduate chapters, as well as mine, slight plug. We also have a graduate chapter for my organization. So anyone that, is going through their graduate program at UNLV or, wherever this chapter is per se, there usually is a local graduate chapter that graduate students can look into if they're interested. But yeah, overall, I think my experience has been it's been more academically driven as well as community service driven versus social. There's still a large social part, but it's not as big as, the stereotypical movie show. But everyone can make their Greek experience whatever they want it to be. It's really up to that one specific person. It really depends on what you're looking for, I think, at the end of the day. And if you want to be surrounded by different people, then definitely go look into a route that you're not normally used to. And I think for me specifically, Greek life has opened so many new doors. Like I know we keep saying that, but it really has. It's given me my support system. It's given me a safe space where I can feel like myself and I can feel like I can grow comfortably around other people I do aspire to be like. And yeah, I hope that kind of answered some questions.
That was fantastic. You're an excellent representative for the Greek community, Nikki. Just trust me. You touched on something that I give a lot of presentations about what our office does and involvement. And I think a lot of people forget that fraternity story life, they're all values-based organizations. Every organization has their own values, and how they live those values is very different. They are all values-based organizations. And so that doesn't always fit with that preconceived notion of what fraternities and sororities are, but I think that's something important to kind of touch on. So thank you. So I have a couple more questions, but I want to make sure if anyone else has questions, any of our attendees, feel free to add them to the Q&A in chat, because I want to make sure I don't use up all the time and not get to anyone's questions. So feel free to add them in. Does anyone want to kind of talk to your former self as an incoming student, or another incoming student or newer student, like what do you wish you had known, from your experience you've learned, but wish you had known as a first generation student coming in about student organizations or why you should get involved or what the experience would be like? If you could go back and tell yourself anything, your former self, or give advice to someone who's in, what would that be? Go ahead.
I think it'd be two things. So first of all, step outside of comfort zone, no matter how hard it is. Take that first baby step, and then you'll be amazed at just the pathway you can walk through. Second thing would be, let's see, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. So there is moments when where you will feel extremely overwhelmed or just have so many things on your plate. But at the end of the day, you will look back and you'll get like 10 times stronger. Like it amazes me how each semester I can just manage to put a little more, a little more, a little more, and somehow manage to pull through.
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of add on to that, I think what I would say to either my younger self or just another incoming student is not to be afraid of change. I know that as someone whose parents didn't go to college, I kind of came into UNLV thinking I have to have the next 4 years planned out. I have to know exactly what I'm doing just to kind of be at the same level as everybody else. And it's okay to not know what you're doing right away. I came in thinking I was going to do certain things and that I was going to have a certain career after all of this. And it changed along the way. And if I hadn't allowed myself to be open to that change, I wouldn't have my research job right now. I wouldn't be in my minor program that has definitely shifted what I actually want to do after college. I would just be a completely different person. So I think not fearing change is a really big thing because there's a lot to explore at UNLV and just in college in general. And I think being open to that can open a lot of different doors.
I also add on. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I also wanted to add on. I feel like, I guess I would say this to someone that is first generation, a new student. You belong here. Imposter syndrome is very much real, unfortunately, but I think the way everyone's lives have played out, if you got into UNLV or if you got into a university, a graduate program, whatever it is, you got in for a reason because you belong there. Like you're needed in this community, and to take advantage of everything that is presented in front of you. Because at least like, again, from like my own, my experience and seeing like how some of my friends have like dealt with going through college, like a lot of the time we feel like we don't belong here. And it's just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I know some people that, they come from a family that are like, that their alma mater is this university, and like I have no one to go to, but I think by becoming involved and at least trying to become involved on campus, you find those people who are working towards your same goal, and having that support system among each other is super helpful. And reminding yourself, but also reminding you and your friends that happen to be in the same boat of being first generation students, like you guys belong here, like you worked your butts off to be here, so we need to take advantage of it.
Yeah, to kind of add on, because I think what everyone else has said so far is some of the information I would have told my younger self. And even like tying back to Olivia's point of the change, don't be afraid of it. I was one of the students that said I was never going to change my major. Look at me now, I changed my major. So like the fact that like what Olivia's saying, don't be scared of the change, because even though I thought I knew what I wanted to do, I took 2 finance classes, not 2 different classes, 2 actual classes. And I literally was like, nope, this is what I want to do. And I completely changed that semester after like 2 classes, taking 2 classes with one professor. So, don't be worried about the change. Don't be scared of it. Because, eventually over time you will learn what you want to do. And I would rather, like anyone that's listening, I'd rather you know what you want to do and love what you do than be stuck in something you said you were going to do for years ago and regret that you didn't go through those changes. And then I guess something I would add on is something I would tell myself is to get involved early. I know I didn't start getting involved until I was a junior, and I had only gotten involved with the First Generation Club. But I look back at it now, and I wish I had joined more organizations in the past because I was that commuter student, went to school, went home, did homework. So I didn't get that connection with a lot of people, and I felt like at the time, I guess I was more of a stuck in the books kind of student. And I think if you're going to go to college, if you're paying, the money to do it, might as well have the full experience and really have fun with it. So find an organization or two that you really enjoy. You don't have to have like 17 because that's a lot for one student to handle. But, just do one or two and see, if you like it. If you don't like it, you don't do that organization the next semester and you find something else. Finding a group of people that you like or the organization that really fits you is really important. So definitely get involved and get involved early because from my experience, you regret that you didn't do it earlier.
I also wanted to add on what Kurt's saying, where like you should do what you want to do. I think something that first generation students have a really strong obstacle to face is that because some of our family members might have not gone to college or even finished like primary school, like they have a certain expectation that you should do something that like makes money. Like I can at least speak on my sister's experience. Like she had dreams of being in the fashion industry, but because of what our parents said, like you should maybe be a teacher because you're going to have more money that way. You should look into working in an office because you're going to have more, security that way. And that's not really what she wanted. It ended up being something that she loved, thankfully. But at the end of the day, your undergraduate career is something that you're, putting your finances towards or whatever, is paying that. Like you're the one that's going through it. So you should be doing something that you want to do and not something that pleases your family. Like, at least for me, like luckily as a second child, like they were more lenient with me wanting to go into my career field because I explained it to them more thoroughly. I was like, look, like I want to be a part of campaigns. Like I want to do all of this stuff. And they're like, you know what? Okay, fine. Like that sounds like a great idea. If you want to do that, then you should do it. So I think either having that conversation or just reminding yourself, like you're doing this for yourself and maybe a little bit for your family, but like mostly yourself, you should remind yourself.
I did want to add on and say joining a club or any organization on campus is really brave. I think people often overlook it because they're everywhere and you can join virtually anyone, but it's a good first step to take. People often, I joined this club, I did this, but it's still a very big step for some people. If you're socially anxious, it may be like harder for you to join organizations or talk to new people. So I think it's always a good idea to, like I think previous panelists have said, to put yourself out of your comfort zone and talk about how, this is a big first step for some people, transitioning from high school to college. It's a big first step. Like some people move away from home. So just doing and, being a college student and joining at least one club is always a good idea. And it's going to put you on a path to be a more socially aware and socially successful person.
Those were all such awesome answers. Thank you so much. And I love how much you all are opening up. I really appreciate that. Something that a couple of you kind of alluded to, that the idea of imposter syndrome, the idea of not necessarily having the support from family members. For first generation students, I know one of the biggest challenges a lot for first generation students is they don't know, because they can't go home and ask questions and get the answers that they need. For some students, they can go home and be like, hey mom, what was it like when you were in college? Or what did you do? Or how do I even change my major? Or who do I go to? What is a FAFSA? Like having that like support system to even ask those questions is really hard for a lot of our first generation students. And organizations like 1GC and all of our other organizations are really good ways to sort of be able to like open up those doors to have other peers ask those questions to you, make those connections, and you be like, hey, what are they talking about? What is that? Like being able to, or I don't even know where to go to, a lot of times I hear is I don't even know who to go to find the information I don't know about. So I want to put an offer out on the table. I'm definitely not going to know the answer to all your questions, but if you have a question, you're like, I don't even know what office to ask this to, reach out to us at involvement@unlv.edu. We are happy to be like, that's not our office, but here's the office it is. Here's a person who you can talk to who can answer that question. That's a financial aid issue, or that's a scholarship issue, or that's related to going to see your academic advisor, whatever the case may be. We can try to help you find that information. But that also comes from the connections that you have in your student organizations. They help create that network of being able to like answer those questions for you. I think the last question I have, this is my favorite question I've asked. I've done a lot of these RSO, just these panel discussions, and I love to sort of end on something positive because I know there's a lot of challenges and obstacles that you're facing, but let's end on something really positive. We've got, about 10 minutes left. Does anyone want to talk about either a favorite memory or experience or something you're really going to take with you once you finish your collegiate experience related to your student organization or involvement?
I did want to kick it off and say one of the more positive experiences I had was I was part of a program at UNLV called Trio/Upward Bound. I think it changed over time, but that program, it took in high school age students and gave them, tours of the campus. You were able to stay on campus over the summer. It was helpful for me as a first generation student just because, unlike Hispanic parents, they're not really willing to let me go out of state to, visit campuses. I don't know if any other Hispanic students feel that way, but they were very wary of doing that. So to stay at a college that was very familiar to them, it's UNLV, they were very familiar with the campus. It was a very good transition for, like, as a family for us to segue into that college part of my life where it was more, independent. I had to not fend for myself, but I had to learn for myself as I went. So a lot of campus organizations, whether that be, Greek Life or RSOs or educational programs like Upward Bound or Trio, all those organizations are really helpful for you to figure out your way with people who are actually trained in helping high school age students.
I think for me, something that's going to definitely make, because I'm graduating next semester, so, it's, graduating during a pandemic, who would have thought? Not me. So I think something that is going to be very special to me, or something I can look back on and be really proud of myself about, my experience involved on campus is my sorority. We host an event for all of CCSD high school girls, and it's called the GLOW, Growing Latinas into Outstanding Women. It's definitely not the same conference it used to be when we first started it. We now reach out to high schoolers that are of different backgrounds. It's not just for Latinas. But we had to host it this time during through Zoom. And it was definitely a crazy experience. We never thought we would have to see our conference of, that we've been doing for 11 years look like that. And, I think participating in it and being able to afford to give to students $300 scholarships is one of my proudest and my most favorite tale that I'll get to have after I graduate, because that's not something that everyone can say, during their undergraduate career, that, we afforded, textbooks for 2 girls that are going to go to university later on. So I think that's definitely something that is very special to me and is going to continue to be special to me after I graduate. But yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of like how Nicole was saying, the whole pandemic and being a student through that is definitely something I'm going to remember, because for me, it was difficult for me to switch online because I'm more of a lecture-based learner. I love sitting in a lecture, professor telling me stuff, cool, that works. Being online and having to watch either recorded lectures or readings was difficult for me. But as for my organization, something I will definitely remember and kind of want to always look back upon is kind of how hard we have worked this year for this semester and everything, because of how far we have gotten. like since I've been a part of the organization, we had only done like a small event for first generation and celebrating. So I know it's kind of tying to what this week is all about is for the first generation students. But I think it's so amazing how much we've gotten the whole university together in order to, show that first generation students matter. I think like a lot of times, even when I think it was Nicole talking about like the imposter syndrome, a lot of first generation students either don't want to associate that they're a first generation student because they think they don't belong, or that they think that the questions they have or the information that they don't have is just kind of something they have to deal with on the sidelines. So the fact that for our organization to get a university together and to have all these amazing events that are happening throughout the week, and having our first generation students be kind of have a spotlight that this is their week, that they are shown that people care about them in the university, and that they do matter, even though there's a lot of first generation students that they don't identify as first generation because they don't want that view, I guess, of being a negative. But being a first generation student is very hard, and it's an accomplishment you should be taking in being a part of yourself and your own self identity. So for me, taking all of the planning and everything we've done for this first generation week is something I will always remember. And I really do hope that even after I graduate, because I'm supposed to graduate next semester, that this event continues, because it really is important that first generation students are well known, and that they are have a spotlight for all the accomplishments they've had, even if it's just going through that next class and going farther than what your family or friends or your community circle has ever gone past. It's amazing accomplishment as you guys have made. So congratulations to all of you for being first gen.
I thought of one last thing. I want to give Csun one more plug in here, because I think this does relate to student organizations, especially to our first generation students. I think one of the things that first generation students, and you can kind of agree with me or not by a heads up or something, is that you don't know what you don't know. It's something I hear a lot from first gen students, is just like, I didn't even know that I was supposed to ask about that, or that was an option, or that I could look. I just didn't even know that. I hear that. I think is like something, and I think Csun offers so much, not just for students who are in Csun, but the idea of Csun is you are an undergraduate student body. You represent all undergraduate students, and you provide services for all undergraduate students. So either Josh or Oliver, do you want to talk just a little bit about some of the maybe lesser known things that Csun does that any of our students should be looking, whether it be scholarships or anything else, that you think Csun can be a resource that students may just not even know that's what your undergraduate student government does for you?
Yeah, I can definitely take that one. So definitely you name dropped one of them, is our scholarships, right? And we've actually are in the process of expanding those scholarships. So the next kind of cycle that those get offered, which will be for next fiscal year, right? We'll have plenty more scholarships that we'll advertise, but please make sure to apply for those, because some of those scholarships nobody will apply for. So that money just kind of is sitting there, right? And it's not going to students that could be, really benefiting from that. But we also have a Csun Lawyer, right? You can get professional, and this isn't like a student or someone that's like, not legally certified. It's an actual legally certified Nevada lawyer, right? That we pay to offer legal advice to students who have, ranging from kind of different questions and stuff like that. So if you're, you have any questions about some of the things that can come up with either kind of immigration questions or school questions, right? Or money questions or anything like that, right? You can totally use that and to kind of go and ask. We definitely have a internship clerkship program. So if you're kind of trying to dip your feet into Csun, right? Or what some students do is they'll dip their feet in here, but because once they're in here, they kind of interact with more students and they get to learn more faces, and then they learn about more organizations, right? And they'll kind of branch off and then go and dive into those organizations themselves. Not a huge time commitment, right? You get to meet new faces, right? And it's all students that are pretty much in the same boat of, they're barely getting into college. They don't know where to go, right? So they kind of join that program, and then they dip their feet and they get a bunch of knowledge about kind of CSUN in general. But then the university, they get paired up with a mentor who, you know, can guide them in CSUN stuff, but then also give them a lot of knowledge outside of CSUN with UNLV in general and kind of different RSOs. So.
Awesome. Thank you. So that was a great thing to end this on. I think I almost forgot to do that. Like I just want to put out there for all of our first generation students, you all and our students who are attending, it's okay not to know the answers to everything. It's okay to feel like this is challenging and I don't know what to ask or I don't know what to do next. But I just want to let you all know, obviously from this, y'all aren't alone. Being a first generation student, I think sometimes students can be like, I'm the only one who feels this way. And it's clear from here that that's not the case. This is a shared experience. And so getting involved in a student organization or interacting with other students who are first generation helps you realize that, like, oh, this isn't just a me thing. This is a lots of students thing. And why do I not feel comfortable asking this question when, you know, lots of students have that same question. So I want to thank all of you for your bravery. Ruby, you talked about the responsibility and the need for bravery. I want to thank all of you for being brave, for kind of advocating for yourself and for other first generation students, and just sharing your experiences. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you all did too. I hope our attendees did as well. Last plug I'll give is that if you want to follow what involvement opportunities exist through our office for student involvement and activities, you can follow us at Involvement UNLV. CSUN is at UNLV CSUN, correct? And then Cricket put the 1GC in there as well. Or if you have questions about anything involvement related, or you're just like, I don't even know where to ask this question, just reach out to us, involvement@unlv.edu. We're here to help you. Thank you all so much. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.